I've always wanted to see a full run breakdown of just how impactful a recycler can be on a very average to low average run with good decision making. So that's what we're doing, along with some concept breakdowns. First, I needed a control run for my test. So I played Commando and Arrow Rain Huntress for about a week, just trying to find a run that didn't have what I felt was a super game-winning solution just handed to me, mostly because people would hyperfixate on it in the comments. It's actually hard for me these days to find runs that aren't super good, but we did it. I'm gonna show this run and how it went, and then show the second run where I replayed the same seed but starting with a recycler. In it, I want to go over a lot of the decisions I made, the reroll items, go over my thought processes on the builds, and compare the runs as a whole. I hope this is going to be a valuable resource for people struggling with builds in Risk of Rain. The biggest concept I want to make clear in this video is my idea of total run economy and ratios. Basically, in a normal non-loop run, you get a certain amount of items. By the end, you have a limited pool of items to work with, and it's all the items from stages 1 to 6 combined. When you look at the end game screen, you're seeing your final total pool of items. What do you want in that pool? When you picture your perfect run, what do you imagine you had by the end? Let's lower the numbers for simplicity. Let's say only ever get 10 items in a single full run. How many of those items do you want to be healing? How many do you want to be speed, damage, AoE, defense, other utility? One of the most important concepts is this. Focus on what you're able to replace with skill as much as you can. New players want to have more healing so they don't have to focus on dodging, but they end up building way too much into healing, and now look, their damage, AoE, and speed are starting to suffer. They tipped the scales, they ended up making the run harder by another metric. The same is true for just about any category here. Going too far into one just means you have less to work with the others. Generally, this is how I'd organize what you need the most of to what you need the least of. If you have extra items in one category you don't need, think about scrapping to better prepare for the future and not tie yourself down to unbalanced ratios. Alright, so I mainly want to go over what I got throughout this run, the choices I was able to make through it, and what led me to victory. Spoilers, sorry, wouldn't be a good test if I didn't win anyway. What I also want to do is start to put my items into groups as this run progresses. Items that are contributing to the build very positively, and simply those that aren't. This could mean anywhere from useless to just a little bit less impactful, or something I'm willing to give up because of my build redundancy, or something I can overshadow with other aspects of gameplay. Disclaimer, this isn't a tier list. Those fundamentally cannot work in this game. This is a very contextual run, with someone very confident in their skill expression behind the wheel, making informed decisions about the overall build quality and what is and isn't scaling them in a positive way, alongside what they're willing to sacrifice to make it happen. Don't scrap an item just because I say I didn't need it in this specific run. I say that knowing someone's gonna write a comment ignoring this part of the video, but you know, what can you do? Alright, so let's get started. This is the first run where I did not have a recycler and just played the run through. Let's just take a look at all the items we got stage 1. Let's just quickly go over what I thought about this stage and how my build felt and kind of what I'd be willing to get rid of at this stage in the game. So start from the top. The PSG, something I don't really need. It's better later, and it's better in numbers, or if you don't have healing, but I had healing, so that's okay. Sticky Bomb is kind of the same, but I actually want it later, so we're gonna keep it. It's better once we have more multiplication in our build. Band is good, AP round is good, better later, but still good now. War Banner, I'm very comfortable in not needing to play around War Banner. We're not in such a dire position that I felt like I needed to. And I also think stacking it is kind of wasteful because I can play around one if I needed to. Moku's good. Harpoon, I don't need it. He's great. It's kind of wasteful that we have 2 antlers. I don't think they stack super well, but we do like it for speed. Chancellor is great. Slug is great. Opal is wonderful. And I think Crit I'd kind of put somewhere in the realm of Sticky Bomb, where it's kind of better later, especially for Commando, but it's not as impactful right now. But I want to keep it because it is doing more damage. Some of the choices we had to make, for example, choosing the key over a firework or a random. Sometimes I would choose a random here, depending on how comfortable I am kind of in the build, for example. Choosing antlers or an opal, for example, like these type of things, slug, AP rounds, random. This one's actually kind of interesting. The multi-shot with the AP rounds, slug, and random. I chose random because I'm really looking for speed or bleed, specifically in commando, and I know the probability is decently high. I don't need AP rounds or slug, I already have those, and while AP rounds is great to stack, I didn't really need it. So I ended up getting rid of a few things. I got rid of banners, PSG, and harpoon at the end of stage 1. Pretty easy and straightforward. At this point in the build, it's mostly positive, but earlier on in the run, everything kind of feels more positive because you have less. So as we go, things might shift from team to team here on what is actually more impactful in the build, and we can go over that. So going into stage 2, we get these items. So a gasoline or 2 is wonderful and actually solves a lot of the AoE problem. You want to keep those. Roll up pennies is a fine item, and it can definitely accelerate your run a little bit faster, so you have to worry less about the scaling of enemies, but personally with the way I play, I don't really need that right now as much. I'm trying to find a solution to the build and not rely on scaling as much, so take it or leave it, it's fine. Berserker's Pauldron was able to actually proc with the gasoline during the last teleporter, but I still don't want to rely on it for the build, and we don't really necessarily need it. Chronic Expansion is wonderful, especially with the AoE. The gas is really one of the best things in our build right now, and it's really going to make a lot of other items better just because we have it. Though, Chronic Expansion is still really good. Stun is great because we're commando. I think Luminous Shot is really nice here as well. It's okay, and we can use Phase Round more often with our build. Wacko is fine. It works with the Opal well. It's long-term defense. We want it for Mithrix. Shurikens are wonderful. And Fuel Cell is not impactful. We don't have an equipment at this point at all. Some of the multi-shops we saw in here as well. The reason I didn't take the Bolstering Lantern or Slug, I wanted the defense. The multi-shop with the Antlers, we didn't want to stack it more. We don't need extra attack speed. We have really nothing to scale with attack speed right now. I needed the AP rounds for the Mountain Shrines, so that's why we did that. Going into stage 3 is kind of interesting as well. This is the stage where we finally get equipment choices, and I was able to do some macro here. I was able to think about potentially shifting into Crowdfunder, DML, FMP, and Caffeinator. Ultimately, though, there was a random choice, and I went with that and got the Capacitor, which works really well with the bands, and that's kind of the build I shift into here. So obviously we have bands, we have a crowbar on the stage, which is great, and we're going to keep it for that. We do get extra attack speed this stage, an extra key. Those are fine. The key is going to be rated a little bit higher here than the attack speed. Again, we don't really have bleed right now, and we're going more into a burst build with Capacitor. Although these syringes do work with Scorpion, it's not something that I'm drooling over. That's going to be more for bosses, and we can kind of already nuke bosses. So Scorpion on your average enemy isn't really going to do a ton. It's great though. We don't really need the syringes very heavily right now. Don't need the necklace, don't need the Gorst Tome. I think Rose Buckler is fine here. I think long term, if we get more opals or something, I'd be willing to trade it. It's better if you have higher health, which I don't. All that being said, it's somewhere between optional and helpful for me, so let's put it in optional. Ukulele. Ukulele is nice because it turns into Polyloot if there's voids and stuff like that, especially if you have a void key, but we don't, and we already have a ton of AoE. So I don't need this item, and it's not contributing towards my build in a very beneficial way. So this is something I'd get rid of here and probably turn into green scrap, because we want 5 at least green scrap for the Bazaar Soup and the Moon Soup to try to get a red that makes our run way better. Razor Wire and Squid Polyp we don't really need. I could have gone into a Caffeinator build of Squid Polyp. I didn't want to. Healing's a little bit redundant. Firework could have gone a little bit, like I said, in the Caffeinator. Didn't want to. Our build's better with the Capacitor here. So I would get rid of all those, and I printed some watches because those are fantastic, and those actually benefit the rest of the build that we're relying on right now. Chronic Expansion, AoE, and bands. And obviously Shuriken. That's kind of where we're at the moment. I didn't want to take too many watches here. While we need more and more damage, going too far into only one source of damage makes your runs worse. Damage from the same source adds, damage from different sources multiplies. Getting 5 of each white damage item is equivalent to about 1,200 watches, for example. Big difference. There are more efficient ways to build damage than just going all into one printer. I'm going to be a lot more picky on green items at this point because I want to utilize red cauldrons. This is a huge source of power for the run. I'd be a fool to try not to take advantage of it. So of course, if we reach that 5 scrap breakpoint by the end of stage 3, I can definitely have more agency over the run just by going to blue portals and checking out the cauldrons. Stage 4. And this is where this is the second scrapper in this run and the last scrapper in this run. So we're able to actually see here the build shift a little bit. But let's go over the items first, and we'll then discuss why I didn't scrap some things. So we got a few items this stage. Here they are on screen. The repulsion armor plates are okay, better than usual, because we don't have any speed in this build, unfortunately. So I kind of want to build up defense to help out when I don't have any good way of moving around or dodging as much as normal. Fungus is never going to work. Dios is great because it gives me that extra comfort. It's a nice comfy item. Focus Crystal is okay with Commando, actually. Commando has a lot of damage fall off, so it's really important that you try to stay close to enemies so that you can actually do proper amounts of damage, which is about most of the time the Focus Crystal range. Backup mag works well with Luminous Shot. Elixir is great for my watches. We don't have any way of getting even close to Deathmark. Brooch is not something that's really impactful here. Warhorn's actually really good if we had more focus on our M1 in our build. We have Scorpion with our build, which is okay, but more of our focus is more of waiting for shurikens to come up and using Capacitor. With AoE at the moment. PSG is the same as it was stage 1 here. We don't have a lot of them. We don't have a lot of health scaling. We don't have a lot of armor to scale with it, so it's not that impactful. It's okay, but it's not, in my opinion, good enough. Guillotine is not something I need here either. We're doing enough damage where I feel like we don't need to really worry about elites all that much. They will die with or without it, and a pearl is great. So after scrapping, you can see that we actually got 10 green scrap, scrapping a lot of the items that we got from the previous stages that I didn't want. I'm keeping Chance Stall, even though I don't like having 2 of them. We got that from stage 3 Teleporter. And we are keeping the Focus Crystals and the Repulsion Armor Plates. Usually, in this scenario, I would probably get rid of those 2 items if I had more speed and I had more of a build where I didn't have to be so scrappy. Like, I didn't have to go in close to enemies. I could just kind of stay back, bleed with Commando, and kind of solve problems that way. Kind of a struggling build. I had to kind of make use of all my resources that I could, and I felt like these were a positive influence on the build and keep me alive a little bit longer. And we got Tesla from the stage 4 boss fight there, the Awu. This is where I could have gotten rid of my gasoline as well, but again, I was kind of a little bit worried about the low movement speed, so I thought more enemies dying around me, the better. But we do have a lot of scrap here, 10 green scrap, 8 white, so going into stage 5, I was kind of hopeful we can find a printer or something that could really dig this out of the trenches here. We chose to go to the bazaar, didn't find anything good in there, and I chose to go to Helmonth. I think there's a bug right now where white multi-shops spawn in Helmonth. And since I was so low on speed, I thought this would be a great opportunity to try to get bleed, try to get speed in some of the available multi-shops in stage 5. And that kind of paid off. We had 2 multi-shops with speed items, which is perfect. And so we picked those up. Most of the items I got on stage 5 were pretty not great. Some honorable mentions though. We had the alien head, the bleed, the 2 speed items, the feather, safer spaces, and some extra bands. The rest, I would have scrapped it. And in fact, you know, because there's no scrapper, it definitely changed the run quite a bit. But I like the alien head because for Umbral Mithrix, the modded boss fight that I play, we wanted movement speed, we wanted more dashes, we wanted more airtime with Commando's slide. Feather's wonderful, spaces is wonderful. We were offered a bloom. I did not take it because I felt like our build as a capacitor build was too important to give up any specific piece of that build. Because we didn't have a scrapper stage 5, bloom was more than likely to pick something that was kind of an unfavorable item, but I didn't want to take the chance. All right, and going to the moon, we got Rejuvenation Racks and IDP is our soup. So we chose the Rejuvenation Racks to kind of help out with the Warped Echo one-shot protection exploit. Just being at full health with Warped Echo up makes it so that you can just live through basically anything, any single hit. So we took that in some sides just to help that out, and we won. So that was the first run. Pretty basic breakdown of what I was thinking through it. Now let's go to second run. So considering I have a recycler in run 2, I'm going to be a lot pickier with what I actually allow myself to incorporate into the build. You'll see a lot of items I put in the impactful category first run get re-rolled simply because I can afford to do so. With a recycler, I can look more towards the end screen build I want and try my best to roll into that. So that being said, let's take a look at the comparison. Second run, we can already see the stage 1 items are massively different. Well, not massively. I mean, a decent amount different, right? In this one, we got a plasma shrimp. There was a void band on the original run that I did not want to pick up, especially with several bands on the stage already. We ended up getting antlers, which is great. We got crit again. We got an unstable transmitter, which we didn't get the first time. 2 mocha, AP round, double band as usual. We actually got a movement speed item. We got the key. And the key's a lot better here because we had the recycler. Printed 2 opals from some of the scrap, got the chance doll, got an ignition tank, and got healing. So in fact, I didn't actually leave stage 1 with any scrap. I used everything, and this was all in all a very positive build. I would take all of these items every time, and I wouldn't get rid of them. Transmitter is kind of on the lower end here. I don't really need it, but it's okay, and I'll keep it for now. So going into stage 2, we get watch, which is wonderful. We get a little bit of attack speed, which is a lot better now that we have plasma shrimp. Actually, some multiplication going off, and that can go off on crit, which is a little bit better. The double gas, which we kept. Chronic expansion. We rolled into a banner, which wasn't too favorable, but it's okay. It's definitely still a buff during the teleporter, and we did have to fight the double beetle queen, so it's all right. The Wecco, the double shuriken. We pulled a regen scrap, which is actually really good with recycler runs and overall just green scrap economy. Heal cell again, which is fine for us. And we pulled a feather stage 2, which is really the big one. This means as far as the runs go, we're pretty solved in the movement department. Almost. Defense is almost already solved as well. So in terms of movement, defense, we're looking really good here. We reroll a few more things on stage 3. We get 3 regen scrap by the end of the stage. We get a sticky bomb. We get a double crowbar, which I don't really want in this build. In the last build, it was okay because we were using capacitor a lot, but now it's not. Stake is not great. Scorpion is not wonderful. Knockback Fin is wonderful. Scythe is not so great, and I don't really need the extra healing. We already have a slug, so I would get rid of it in favor for a red item for sure by means of 5 green scrap. Key's wonderful with recycler. Fireworks we don't need as much. Deathmark has become much better since the second DLC. We're able to get a lot more debuffs a lot more often. And we have one of the rare debuff items, Scorpion, to make it more likely that we'll activate it. That being said, I don't have Deathmark active yet. And so depending on the situation, I would potentially scrap the Deathmark here at the end of stage 3 if I wanted to get to 5 green scrap for soup. Though it's more likely Deathmark eventually activates, then we do get a red that carries us here. And then the wrap, which is okay, but at this point, I don't really think I need it as much, but it's fine. It depends on the day, and then the character. I'll sometimes keep them, sometimes not. All right, stage 4. So, stage 4, we get another wrap, couple Monster Tooth necklaces, PSG, we get Focus Crystal, we get Chrono Bobble, Infusion, Backup Mag, and another key. So I would honestly get rid of almost all of this. We got an extra stake, another crowbar as well, and none of it really positively contributes to the build that much. I've explained the PSGs before. I explained the Focus Crystals before that I kind of needed to use them in the first run, the original run. I don't need to use them anymore. I could play this run a lot more lax. I can just kind of do a lot of area of effect damage and be fine. And I'm putting out a lot of damage with Plasma Shrimp and everything at the moment. I feel like my damage is great. And we're actually activating Deathmark at the moment with our debuffs, so that's wonderful. All in all, I scrap most of the items. I get enough green scrap. I get about 7. So that if we choose to use a soup in the bazaar between stage 4 and 5, it will take 3 regen scrap and 2 regular scrap. And then the moon soup will have 3 regen scrap and 2 regular scrap for another full soup if I were so inclined. Always kind of prepare for soups even if you may or may not have a scrapper. We ended up re-rolling the Genesis loop from the original run into Empathy Cores, and we rerolled the Tesla into a Shattering Justice, which definitely means that the Deathmark is working. This is a lot of armor strip, and we're doing a lot of damage at this point. And we got a lot of white scrap also. Obviously, spoilers, there is no white printer on stage 5 that I wanted, but this is how I would play it anyway. And going into the bazaar between stages 4 and 5, we see that Ceremonial Dagger, and I think it's a great call to spend 3 regen scrap and only 2 real scrap to get a red here reroll, and we get a behemoth, which is wonderful for grenades, good for phase round. It's great just for overall damage, especially because we're not doing a bleed build. We're doing more of a build that builds off of each other with damage right now with chronic expansion, watches, plasma shrimp, AP rounds, etc. So it's really important. Stage 5, we end up re-rolling the bloom, so we get an extra life. We get an extra band or 2 actually. There is a rejuvenation rack, which we know that the moon soup has later. We get a Lumina shot. We get our first actual dagger again, surprisingly. Speed, saber space is still. I rerolled into a brain coat, which is not wonderful. Rerolled into a Lepton daisy. I'll take the rose buckler. The red whip is fantastic for Mythic's fight. The scythe I'm not really too happy with, but it is a little bit extra crit, so it's all right with the skilling we have. Same with the predatory. I'm just gonna go over bungus. We don't need that. We re-rolled into a head stomper though, which is obviously fantastic. And bolstering lantern we don't really need on the moon. I ended up printing another rejuvenation rack once we got to the moon, and we got a quail, so we can actually use headset during the fight. And I got some ignition tanks this time because we already had the sides, like we're good. I'll just take some gas AoE from whatever. So obviously comparing these 2 runs, there are massive differences. Even the stat pages here at the end, you can see really how well one was doing over the other. You can even see it just in the numbers. The recycler run was way better in every single stage, and I had more of my build bullet points hit every single time they were in consideration. In the 2 scrapper sessions that we had during this run, we were able to get what I would refer to as a comfortable amount of potential into the build for the recycler run. As for the first run, we definitely scrapped a similar amount, but so much of the more of the build was struggling. We were reliant more on the potential than we were on what we had in actuality. I hope you enjoyed this more insightful look into how a recycler can really change a run and the decisions that go into build management. I've wanted more of a breakdown, an example that shows what can contribute to a build and what doesn't for a while. So I hope you learned something. My editor also went through a hell of a time making sure this video was great, so if you saw a mistake, no you didn't. As always, thanks for watching, and let me know if there are other advanced build topics you want me to dive into.